Hey, Viking fans, is Jalen Reagor out? Who the heck is Brandon Powell? Let's talk about that next in 3, 2, 1. Gather around, SKOL brothers and sisters. This is SKOL World Live, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. You can follow me at SKOL World on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Let's go, let's go. I got Johnny Football here. Tell them where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at JohnBBoyd12. I'm doing some live shows now over on Bite Size Sports Network on Tuesday nights at 8. Necessary Roughness is over there. And then here weekly on some day or another, right?
Yeah, here whenever we decide. And good news, we should have Darrell Madison on next week if we have the show on Thursday, which I was going to talk to you about. So you're learning for the first time that if you're available on Thursday, we could do the show then and have Darrell Madison on.
Yeah, let's do it.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, he can't do Wednesdays, otherwise he'd have been on today.
Okay.
But so this latest pickup, who was it? Brandon Powell. Do you know much about him, or you got any thoughts on him?
Well, there was the clip that's been going around Twitter. Everyone starting to jog their memory on the guy who somersaulted into the end zone against us on that punt return when he was playing with the Rams. So he's definitely got some special teams juice, and he's a shifty guy. Locally, some Rams fans call him the jukebox, which I take a little offense to. I grew up with Dante Hall and guys like that, but he's got a little bit of juice and might, like the thumbnail suggests, might push Jalen Reagor a little bit for that punt returner spot. On the offensive side, hasn't been utilized a ton, but a guy KOC is familiar with anyway. So for what that's worth.
So not a whole lot of productivity. Last year with the Rams was his best year as a receiver. Targeted 32 times, 24 catches, 156 yards. He has a little added feature to him, 17 rushes for 80 yards. A little bit of a gadget player, potentially. Yeah. So that's kind of neat. It's really hard to see a 5'8" guy behind 6'5" linemen. So I can see where that would come into play. The reason why I would think this guy is not going to be our number 2 receiver. He's not going to be the number 3 receiver.
No.
But he could be our punt returner. And Reagor wasn't the greatest. He was definitely better than what we were going to put out there. And I was happy that we did pick him up. At what cost, though? We're lacking draft picks. Do you think this Reagor's guaranteed money, I believe, right? This 4th year of his rookie contract.
Yep.
So if we release him, we'd eat it. But I don't see these two guys coexisting on the team. They seem redundant.
Yeah, I mean, unless Jalen Reagor kind of gets it together on the offensive side of the ball, because I think he could be a little bit more effective as a receiver, with Brandon Powell as kind of the more gadget guy, like you mentioned. But if he loses that punt returner spot to Powell, he loses a lot of value to the 53-man roster. And you got to hope anyway, unless he's taken a massive step forward, really just from a cognition standpoint and understanding the offense, you really hope whoever we get in the draft or whoever late free agent pickups we get into the building beat him out for that wide receiver 2-3 to go along with JJ and KJ. But I'm kind of with you there. One of those guys should make the 53 as the punt returner, and then outside of that, it's just kind of we'll see what we've got with Reagor when he has a full off season to kind of get acclimated and get into this flow of the offense. But if Powell beats him out for that punt returner job, I think his seat's a little hot. and it's a $2.41 million cap hit salary that's fully guaranteed for Reagor. I think if they were to find a trade partner for him, that wouldn't all be dead for the Vikes, to my understanding.
That would make sense. Yeah.
But yeah, if you do cut him, it's not a huge number to eat necessarily,
Yeah.
but you kind of have to weigh that a little bit, I think, when if that turns out to be the decision. If you're pretty in between on the two of them, the front office, I mean, and the coaching staff, by the time we get to cut day, you'd probably lean towards keeping Reagor just because you don't have as much tied into Powell as far as like the guarantees go and everything like that. But
and on punt returns, he was 24 for 177 at 7.1 or 7.4 yards per. Oh no, that's still. Why is it? It says punt returns per return, 7.4. And the year before, he had 6 returns for 133 yards. That must have been the game he had the return against us.
I think
he
so.
had a return in 2021 because he averaged 22.2 that year, 6 returns for 133 yards. And the year before, 17 for 152 for 8.9. Pretty serviceable, I guess. And the potential to run one back was good. I haven't seen we haven't seen any muffs. We haven't seen any shakiness, because we're not watching the games. So I guess we'll see. They'll see in practice, see who's the better player. He's the older player of the two. He's 27. For some reason, he didn't play in 2019. So he was trying to find his way in the NFL. But, it's a camp body. It's competition. It's going to push a player that did not perform well for us. We thought he was doing good, and then the Indianapolis game hit, and he forgot that he was playing football for some reason. And I think that turned off a lot of people and proved what the Eagles thought of him. And but hey, ISM never returned a punt in his college career, and he was about to be our starter week 1.
Right.
So that was kind of crazy. Just a recap. Did this last night, but late in the show. Let's do it earlier in the show. We got current free agents: Chris Boyd, BC Johnson, Irv Smith Jr., Duke Shelley, Shannon Sullivan. I don't think anybody has been signed since yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. I know BC Johnson was getting a look. What team was giving BC Johnson a look? I think he tried out for somebody.
I saw that too. I can't remember what the team was.
Yeah, he's an NFL player, and he's got hands. And he runs good routes, and he's a reliable player. He should never have started over Justin Jefferson, which was the most insane thing I can think of. But hey, that's under Zimmer. But I wouldn't have minded him being back competing for a receiver job on our team. Last year it was really muddled. There was a lot of guys. He took himself out of it with the injury. Unfortunately, he's now has ACL tears on both knees now.
Yeah, he's
if I'm not mistaken. So out of these guys, I think last night we all agreed that we wanted Chris Boyd back. No, I'm kidding. Duke Shelley back. However, the second guy we did think was Chris Boyd. What was your thought process there? None of us wanted Shannon Sullivan back. I said Irv Smith Jr. potentially if he was veteran minimum and he would be our third tight end. But Chris Boyd we wanted back just for the fact that he was a good special teamer. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Chris Boyd coming back at all. The full fleshed out mock off season I did. Yeah, that's right, Tim. The full mock off season I did.
It's not out of the question. Cutting somebody is not out of the question.
Right. It's not an egregious amount of money necessarily when it comes to that point, especially if you have a better option. But that's definitely not
ideal.
The inclination right now, it's not ideal.
Not ideal, for sure.
But I wouldn't mind Chris Boyd back. He's a great special teamer, and that matters. I guess it's about the money at that point. But if he comes back on a vet min, I think that's a great get. I would love to have Duke Shelley back. Again, kind of the same thing where you hope somebody beats him out, but you also kind of have that insurance. You know he can be serviceable on the boundary anyway.
Thanks, Tim, for I think he's taken
BC?
BC Johnson was the Patriots.
Okay.
Now that rings a bell. So yeah.
Yeah, and with how thin the wide receiver room looks right now, I wouldn't mind giving BC another look either. But again, he's a previous regime guy, so I could see them just cutting bait and seeing who they can find that they like. Chandon Sullivan coming back has to be out of the question for sure.
Yeah.
And
We got better options with younger players right now. I think.
Right, and I think if Chandon were to come back, I think the number 1 or 2 need on this team is still going to be slot cornerback because he was not particularly effective there.
Well, there is thoughts that when we're in nickel that Murphy would slide inside because he had played 50% of his snaps in his career have been in the
right,
slot.
and I like that too. But he's also been shadowing number 1 receivers, and that's a lot of the reason he traveled to the slot. He traveled to the slot to cover Cooper Kupp in their divisional games, and that's going to be sort of a matter of what your other options are at cornerback. If you find a guy in the draft who you really like in the slot, you can have Byron Murphy on the boundary if that's going to maximize your cornerback room the most. But it's a draft that's really thick with those lengthy boundary style cornerbacks. So I think that's probably ideal. Is that when you do go down to nickel, you've got a rookie who's there. Yep, 2 years. We don't know the money yet.
When he said resigned, I was like, "What? He was in his last year. He making $3 million. I didn't think I didn't think he was a free agent, but now I'm looking at we extended him 2 years.
Yes, interesting.
That should make my coming up. I have like the world's biggest CG Ham fan. Jamie went to high school with him, so at 9:00 Eastern, 8:00 Central, we're probably going to celebrate the greatest Viking in the history of the game, according to Jamie. Yes, yep. And formerly of Augustana College or Augustana University in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yep, and 2022 captain. So I think
true story.
Some leadership in the building is something they prioritized. But I am curious to see that money there for sure. But yeah, Murphy can play inside or out, so it will just be a matter of the other skill sets in that cornerback room, I think, because he can complement either really. Chris Carter type player.
JJ and use KJ as a Chris Carter type player, help opening the middle with TJ. I guess as a slot. I think I'm with you on Michael Harris. I'm probably the biggest Naylor supporter out there. Him and Ty Chandler for that matter. So let the young guys hunt. I'm like, all that guys catch first downs. And by the way, if you're listening, this show is completely driven by questions. And we go the direction of the chat. So
yeah, chat us up.
I just got this other shit waiting in the wings in case it goes stale. You guys drive this show. Today it's a lead-in show to my SKOL experience tonight. Next week this will be on Thursday. But yeah, if you're on this show, it's to ask questions or to tell us what you want to talk about. I didn't think you wanted to talk about our next punt returner. I almost put that on the thumbnail as a joke. But yeah, guys, it's all you. And
especially
what do you
this
think?
Time of year.
What I forget what your opinion of Naylor is. Tell me about that.
I like him. I'm probably not quite as all in as you might be from an optimism standpoint, but we've seen over the past decade or so. We've seen these late round picks take a year, take 2 years to really get integrated in the offense and turn into really good wide receivers, Diggs, Thielen. And I think we saw a couple of late flashes from Naylor in the late season. And yeah, that's pretty likely, Timothy. They've been doing all kinds of interesting things to attack this 2023 cap situation.
With the extension, the signing of Oliver, bringing back Bradbury, who is, has been a good run blocker. We have a big commitment to the run, I think. and bringing back Madison and not cutting Cook. And we have $18 million of the running back room. It's like, or more maybe. There's a big commitment. It looks like we're committing to the run, don't you think? It seems like that's going to be a big part of 2023.
Well, at the least, I think we're committing to that heavy personnel.
Right.
12, 13 personnel, 22.
How many fullbacks in the league, right?
Not a ton. Not a ton. It's going to be – this might sort of steer a little bit more towards the Shanahan branch of those offenses than the McVay branch. We saw heavy, or consistent 11 personnel last season, and I think that O'Connell and Kwesi and from up top, they might be trying to zig, while the rest of the league is still zagging with their offensive personnel, and force defenses into their base personnel and try to attack 4 DBs as opposed to 5, 6 when they're able to to double Jefferson or devote the extra guy to Jefferson. But I think they'll still with Oliver, who's a pretty good pass catcher as well, wasn't asked to do a ton of it in Baltimore, but coming out of college, he was a pass catching tight end and ended up kind of sliding into that Nick Boyle role in Baltimore out of necessity, and was pretty competent there as well. But I think we could see plenty of passing out of the heavy personnel too. But with Cook still on the roster, re-signing Madison, CJ Ham back in the building, I think it at least is going to come back a little bit down to earth. 64% passes last season, I think, was the third highest rate of any team in the league. So I think that might come a little bit more middle of the pack. But I think the emphasis is really going to be on the personnel packages and what they can do out of that to kind of put the defense in a disadvantageous position.
So leading into that, like last night, I was one of my things about Lamar Jackson, which Michael said earlier, was just clickbait fodder, and I agree, Michael. It was just, I had to talk about it last night, and I thought it would spur some conversation, and boy, did it. And I didn't get to talk about what I wanted to talk about until 50 minutes into the show because of Lamar Jackson or Kirk Cousins in our future and who we're going to draft, which we'll talk about potentially drafting. But this leads into Anthony Tollison question about, do we have too many tight ends? We don't have too many. We have 5, right? So yeah, we have 5 tight ends, and someone's going to miss out. Someone could still go to the practice squad because we got the young guy we drafted last year in the 7th round from South Carolina. Yep. What was his name?
Nick Muse.
Nick Muse likes to take pictures of himself in college. I don't know. It's a little silly, but yeah, he's an eccentric type player. I think Oliver is a much better player than him based on this film I saw of him in college and the pros. If you go and look at his YouTube channel or YouTube highlights, the dude is a freaking, amazing catches, and he probably had to because he had Lamar Jackson throwing to him. So this guy goes from 50 some catches and 700 yards receiving at Fresno State to 12 catches and 150 yards or whatever, because his quarterback doesn't throw the ball and is off the field for 5 games, 2 years in a row. So after looking at the Oliver pick, I loved it. The guy can block like no tomorrow. They rated him second best run blocker in the league at his position, but he is an untapped offensive potential because now he's got a guy that can throw in the ball, and we saw what TJ Hawkinson can do. What happens when we go to 12 personnel and now we got 2 guys that are 6'5" and catch the ball, and he's an athlete. He ran a 4.6, 40. So and he's 6'5". We got 2 6'5" tight ends that can run. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. So.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, with you there, Michael. And it's going to be
Michael. I like you. All right. I like you, man. You're a good dude.
Yeah. Yeah, the camp battle for tight end 3 is going to be interesting. Johnny Munt, Nick Muse, Ben Elfson. So we'll see what happens there. But we've also got CJ Ham in the mix, you could see him doing some more like H-back type stuff.
By Smith, I think he's Simon Smith Jr. and he's a free agent, so there's no cutting him. Right. So
I didn't see that one. Yeah. So he's gone. Don't worry about him, Michael.
It's Oliver, it's TJ Hawkinson, it's Munt, it's Muse, and it's Ellison.
Yep.
So I think potentially the three guys on the block, I think are fighting are Ellison, Munt, and Muse. Muse could potentially just not make the team and just try to get put on the practice squad again. Mm-hmm. So I think he's a little safer than Ellison and Munt. But we re-signed Ellison like it was a free agent. We re-signed him, but at a veteran minimum. And I don't know if it was all guaranteed or not. I don't think it was. And really, I think it's the top 53 contracts that go towards your cap.
51.
I never really could understand that, but potentially might not hurt us. Mm-hmm. Munt, Muse, and Ellison are like the three guys that are probably competing for 2 spots. Muse, I think, has the inside track because he could probably go on the practice squad. You can put veterans on now, so all 3 of these guys could go on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm. And he is one of Kwesi's draft picks as well. So they like him at least a little bit. And Johnny Munt came over here from LA, so I feel like the odd man out of the 3 is probably Ellefson. When you consider the front office and the coaching staff. But you're probably hoping that Nick Muse takes a step forward and wins that job if you're picking anybody.
I'm thinking Ellison potentially is probably a better blocker than Munt.
For sure.
And that gives him the edge because Munt was brought here to help teach the offense. And I remember early on in preseason, Kirk Cousins says he leaned on him a little bit because he came from that. So I think now that it's second year is really Munt. Well, maybe that gives him the inside edge still because now he's got to teach Oliver. And
I can see that going either way.
I could not tell you who would end up winning these jobs. Yeah. Well, we know Oliver is number 2 and TJ Hawkinson is number 3. No, we lost Patrick Peterson, Dalvin Tomlinson. I don't want to know, how much. What Dalvin Thomas 4-year, 53, 57 million, something like that.
4 years, 57. Yeah,
we could find better value, right, than that.
Yes, and he got guarantees, some steep guarantees into 2025 that I'm sure Kwesi wasn't willing to do. I mean, Cleveland's actually hard pressed to move off of that contract until 2026. Really, if you weigh the dead cap numbers.
Now we brought in Marcus Davenport. Is he played D end at all on a 3-4? Because he's like 265. Can he or will he or is it all gonna be? Or are we super redundant with outside linebackers right now unless we trade off Zadarius Smith?
So I think what's really attractive with Davenport and keeping Zadarius Smith is some of these lighter packages that Brian Flores likes to go to. He likes to go to like a Mac 5.0 front. There's some other jargon attached to his like big dime packages.
You're gonna have to teach me a little bit. Mac 5.0, please explain.
So that's just, I mean, it's a dime package, and that's 3 down linemen, 2 linebackers essentially. And when they ran it in New England, it would be Kyle Van Noy and Dante Hightower as the linebackers, and then they had a smattering of random veterans that were Belichick guys that they'd move around there. But if they go to a package like that, if these are passing downs, I mean, you could see I mean, you could picture Zadarius Smith in the B gap, and then Davenport and Daniil outside at the 5 tech, and then you've got your 2 linebackers inside. A guy I interact with on Twitter, I want to say Rob Searles, who's a great follow. He even prognosticates they might put like a DJ Wanham into that package too. And when you're really trying to rush the passer, you could have all 3 of those guys when you're not worried about the run, all 3 of those guys in a package at the same time. And I mean, that could be a really dangerous pass rush front. So I think you could kick Davenport inside in base, but when you go to the nickel, when you go to the 4-2-5 kind of stuff, or when you go all the way down to dime packages, you can deploy all of them at the same time. And I don't think you see a ton of redundancy there, or even if you do, I think it's a good thing at a certain point, because it also furthers the offense kind of element of surprise when you know there are similar skill sets across the defensive line. You don't know who's doing what. You don't know who's stunting to where. And I think that could be a really effective tool for Brian Flores to kind of keep offenses on their toes. But, when they do go down to base, I think that's where it gets a little tricky, and that's where you're probably going to see 3 of, Bullard, Tonga, Phillips, Lowry, those guys inside on early downs. But when you get these guys to pin their ears back, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do with all of these chess pieces on defense. Did we just see a Troy Reader comment?
Yeah, so Troy Reader
Yes,
agreed to terms with the Vikings. That was like at 5:56 p.m. So about 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Linebacker, 29 years old,
6'3", 245.
He had 241 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 8 QB hits, 5 sacks, 2 interceptions in his 66 career games.
Both those picks were last year, I think.
Yeah, could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he it's another Rams guy, but I think he might be. I don't know if it's necessarily competition for a Jordan Hicks, but he's probably in line for that same type of position as Hicks on the defense. It's probably a second string to Jordan Hicks the way he'll be deployed is my guess. I've seen some disconcerting tape that's been posted on Twitter, just a few lowlights, I suppose. But he's
Hicks?
a serviceable body.
Are you talking about Reader?
Yeah, but those are obviously just a couple one-offs, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, it's another body in there, another camp body at the least, and somebody familiar with the staff. So,
well, here's where he was coming out into the draft. He a 225-pound bench reps of 27.
that's a lot.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Vertical jump 37.5. Broad jump 10 inches 2 centimeters, 10 inches and 10 feet 02, 10 feet 2 inches. Sorry. 20-yard shuttle 414, 3-cone drill 7. So those are all good numbers.
Yeah.
It did say he had a 40 time of as low as 455 and a 40 time of 463. So somewhere in between there. And so, I mean, athletically, he looks all right. Wingspan, hand size, and arm length are all below average. So that might hinder. I don't know how well he tackles. That might hinder all that. But all his athletic traits seem to mean that kind of will would be complementary to a Hicks, and that he could be a rotation guy. But we were certainly short of inside linebackers. And do we really want Troy Dye? He was a kind of a guy that I thought, was pretty high end coming in. Like, hey, this guy looks pretty athletic. But
yeah, I love the no gloves.
Gets buried in the run game, makes bad decisions. I just I fell out of he fell out of favor with me. I
Mhm.
guess he's okay at special teams though, but this guy kind of might beat a guy like that out and provide us a little more depth, and being that he was a Ram, you might see this guy in the 53.
Yeah, but ultimately, Anthony, I think he's sort of just a guy. Not a huge splash signing, obviously, but he does have some starter experience. Um, might see the field a little bit, but on the low end, he might just be a camp body that doesn't quite make the roster. If we find a rookie that can take his spot.
I don't feel like, even though it looks like we're digging in the dime bin, that we're giving up on making at least one more splash in free agency. What's
Hmm.
your thoughts on that?
There's Doogie. Darren Wolfson has been saying that it seems like they're trying to work some money around to potentially make another splash signing. Um, maybe that's Vander. Oh, Leighton Vanders. Um, but it's something that could happen, and that Kwesi and Brzezinski are going to figure some things out. I mean, if you actually look at the 2023 cap hits of most of these signings to this point, it's unbelievable. I mean, they slapped 4 void years on Davenport's deal. Um, the Murphy cap hit for 2023 is like 2.8 or something like that. Garrett Bradbury's is 2.6. Um, so there are ways to create it, and there's also they still save plenty of money moving on from Zedarius if they're not able to work something out there. Um, there are ways to get there for sure. So I don't think we should necessarily, it's starting to slow down a little bit, but I don't think we should necessarily leave any of that stuff out of the question. I don't think we could necessarily leave, maybe not this guy specifically, maybe like an Odell or something like that. Like they could get the room for a guy like that if they wanted to. Um,
Now, I know there's certain people that don't want Odell because they don't want him whispering in Justin Jefferson's ear. That's I think SK in our group kind of thinks that way. And then there's the fact that I seen what he did on that plane. I saw the video of it. He was wrong. He was embarrassing himself. He caused all those people not to get on their flight. I mean, what human does that to other humans and then brags at them as they're walking off that I'm just gonna get on a private jet? I just I don't know if I want that in the locker room. And
yeah.
he kind of, I warmed up to the guy because when he went to the Rams, he would go over to the sides and talk to children and give them whatever, his gloves or whatever. He was
Hmm.
really fan engaging, and I started to like him again.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I don't know what kind of experience that will be. I know NFL players don't care as long as you perform on the field, so I will not care as long as he performs on the field.
Yeah.
But goodness, I do not want to see Justin Jefferson getting any ideas from a guy he admires, recognizes, and wore a T-shirt that said "Free Odell" when he was in Cleveland. So he looks up to the guy, and I think they both played at LSU.
Hmm.
But hey, here's a good one, Daniil Hunter. Um, he's his last year of his contract, right? I mean, he's still young. He's gonna be 20. He's 28 season, or is he gonna be 29?
I
But
think this is his age 28 season.
I want to say that too. And we'd probably prefer to have him over Zadarius Smith long term. He has been friendly to the Vikings as far as in contract negotiations and
Hmm.
stuff like that. That he probably says, "Hey, this is my last payday. We got to do something with this guy." What do you think they're gonna do?
I've
I give
always
you all the
liked
hard questions. I give you all the hard questions.
I've always liked extending him. Um, we've got so his cap hit for 2023 is something like 13 million. and he's been on a bargain deal for a long time. His second contract was an absolute bargain. But I think you're right. I think when he looks to this next contract, he's looking to get a pretty big payday. I think though he knows that at this point he's not going to reset the market. At least you'd hope that's kind of where he's at, where his headspace is. And if he's willing to work with the front office at all, I think you re-sign him. I mean, even something like 4 years, like 90 million new money, I think that's plenty palatable for the Vikings. And I think it's sort of a win-win when you consider his age, and that 22.5 APY for him would be an attractive thing. And if you do add 4 new years to this deal, which again they haven't been particularly interested in these long contracts, long extensions, Kwesi, since he took office. But if you do something like that, it's very easy to move things around and makes that money very malleable for this window that they're obviously trying to attack. And if you do something like that, you can also lower his 2023 cap number depending on when you agree to these terms. So that's another avenue for them to create a little bit more money for 2023 if they feel the need to. So they can hammer something like that out. I think it could benefit both sides.
This is probably the first time you've been on the show where my father-in-law from Panama, hola Minnesota, saludos desde Panama.
Sweet. Hello from Minnesota.
Where's my dog to translate? He knows more Spanish than I do, but I know he's saying something good. Thanks for watching, Papa. All right.
I know he's saying something
that's
good.
That's my kid's grandpa right there.
Awesome.
Michael Harris, yeah, I don't know. He tried to recoup his image, but no one's talking about it. So no one's talking about what he did recently, and it's not going to hurt him.
I'm not a huge fan of it either. But if we're talking football situation, this is one of the best ones for him.
Yeah,
Kevin O'Connell knows how to utilize this guy.
Obviously, all his ability to play on the field, but we don't know for sure, right? This is a guy that should be required to try out because we don't know what his knee situation is. He got hurt late in the 2021, right? He didn't play all of 2022, and now he's going to come out and play. Can we re-sign Hunter and JJ a big payday next year, and we'll have a lot of money tied up in those? So yeah, we could. We have enough.
Easily. Yep.
And then in 2025, it's even better.
Yeah, at this point, there should be no concern about 2024, 2025 cap situation at the moment.
Football talk.
There you go.
All right. Thanks for listening, man.
And you got to think about the opportunity cost of letting a guy like Danielle Hunter walk. I mean, he's still a high caliber edge player, and those guys are difficult to find and they're difficult to keep in the building. So I think if you're able to do that, and you're talking about an age 28 to age 33 window with probably very light guarantees on those final 2 years of that contract, I think it could be really easy to do, and really benefit both sides. So I like re-signing Hunter. You've got to re-sign JJ, obviously. TJ Hawkinson should probably reset the tight end market when he gets his extension. But there's room for all of that right now, especially when if they are able to get a rookie quarterback in, that eases things a little bit. And you're also just starting to move off of some of these veterans. The cut of Adam Thielen took $22 million off the 2024 books. And you're going to see similar savings with Dalvin Cook, not quite to that extent, but you're going to save just about a full. I think it's hit next year something like $15 million. The out's very, very easy this time next year on Dalvin Cook. So once we get to this point next year, it's really, really easy to first, just give that money out and sign those extensions, but it's also easy to create more even at this juncture next season. So, it's no, I wouldn't have any concern about those extensions, and you keep those guys in the building if you're able to, for sure. So I don't think there should be any hesitancy there.
Yeah, with I'd rather trade Zadarius for a pick and keep Hunter. I think the fact that we got Davenport and we do have Wanham and Pat Peterson,
Patrick Jones,
Patrick Jones. Sorry, I got
second.
Patrick Peterson and Patrick Jones. So we got depth there. I don't feel bad if we got rid of Zadarius Smith. You
No,
you know so signing Hunter, saving the money, getting rid of Zadarius Smith. Obviously, they can coexist. We could keep them all, and we'd be happy with them
yeah,
all. But if we could use that money to go get and improve a D line, uh, improve a number 2 receiver, make way for a rookie coming in. I don't, something. Put that money. Yeah, Zadarius Smith. I don't know what's happening. I'm thinking people be more apt. This is what's going to happen. I heard this today and I kind of agreed with it. That the Zadarius Smith and a Cook might might be on the market past the draft, and we won't get 2023 picks for him, but we could get 2024 picks for him, which is right in line with me saying, hey, if we can't get the quarterback this year, I don't want to overpay for one this year when we could probably pay less for one next year if we accumulate picks and we'll have a second rounder, all that stuff. I just it would make it. I would be okay with that. Do you feel okay with getting next year picks? And I think you get more back if you're giving up future picks rather than current picks. And even if we traded for a player and a pick, would be great. If we need
Mhm.
something.
Yeah, and to your comment, Anthony, I don't think it's necessarily either or. That would be my preference
Yeah,
if
it's
you
not
had to
either
pick
or.
one. I'd rather re-sign and extend Hunter and move off of Zadarius, but I don't think it's necessarily either or. And also, the Vikings hold all the leverage in the Zadarius situation right now, all of the leverage. If they were to move on from him, it's a very, very light dead cap number. If they were to keep him, they can pretty well utilize him to his full extent if he stays healthy. The way Brian Flores deploys his pass rushers, and having Davenport on the roster, we've also got a succession plan if we feel like moving on from Zadarius. So not only are we not really tied to him as edge two necessarily, we're not tied to him financially to any crippling extent, and the ball's really in the Vikings front office court in that sort of Twitter jousting that we've seen where he's sort of puffing his chest out a little bit. This is the time, and you probably could have seen this coming. This is the time for him to renege and look for a little bit more money because he took the shorter low money deal, coming off of the back surgery, played a pretty high quality season, didn't stay all the way healthy, but he played all the games. And this is the time for him, and it's probably something the Vikings saw coming when they negotiated this deal. This is the time for him to come back to the table and see if he can leverage his season to get a little bit more money. But I think all the leverage still lies with the Vikings front office. And yeah, exactly, Michael. Like if it's something where he's not bought in and he wants to see what's out there, more power to him, man. That really doesn't hurt us too much, especially when you consider what we already have at the position, his waning prime with his age, and the lack of guarantees attached to him from that masterful Rob Brzezinski contract negotiation from last season.
So, I think we got a Jordan Travis. I still want my boy Jordan Travis next year. The guy's gonna be a 6-year senior. And he had a hell of a good year with Florida State. It looks 3,200 yards, 9.1 average, 64 completion percentage. Based on how he performed and the fact that he did it in 1 year, he probably should have came out this year with that. Everybody else seems to come out after 1 year playing good, but yeah, probably smart. Damn, he looks fast. I'm looking at some highlights here. But yeah, that's another example of some depth going into next year. Do you have any insights of this guy? I didn't see college football at all.
I don't actually. This
So
is a guy
yeah,
I have no
I'll have
idea. Tell us
I
all
will
about
talk
him.
about him next year. Anthony
Yeah.
Tolson, thank you. And what do we got? We got what's this? We got Hammer Time, Bandito. Make sure you're on the show
Bandito.
tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, so you can see Jamie fawn all over the decision to extend CJ Ham at age 30 for 2 more years. So we're gonna have him for 3 more years. So wow, Vikings re-sign CJ, yeah. FSU QB, right? I mean, I'm seeing a highlight here. He looks pretty quick, and if he can throw as good as he looks like he can run, I am wow. Yeah, let's see. I'm looking at some highlights. Yeah, it's a decent arm. That's a decent arm. So yeah, but I am a little turned off the fact that he played for the same school as Christian Ponder. I don't know if I want to relive that, but he does look better than Christian Ponder did. I have no idea why we drafted Christian Ponder
It's not
as high
Jimbo
as we did.
Fisher though. It was Jimbo Fisher coaching up Kellen Mond as well, and that was the Christian Ponder parallel with him was the same offensive coach. So maybe we sidestep a little bit of that.
Yeah, I don't even know who's coaching Florida State now. So, oh yeah, Bendito, I appreciate it. This is my lead-in show. This show will be on next Thursday. We're gonna have Alexander Madison's dad, Darrell, on. But this week, I wanted my Thursday night off, so I talked Johnny Football in here to do the show going in tonight. Guys, we have a treat for you at 8 o'clock Central. We have Matt Anderson from Jesus, I just forgot his show.
He's I don't want to misspeak. He does a couple
Happy
of
Hour,
things.
Vikings Happy Hour
Yes.
on a channel on YouTube. So I keep forgetting every time we say it. But he's Vikings Happy Hour. He's big on Twitter. If you just search Matt Anderson on Twitter, you'll find him. Yep. But tonight he's on. This is the second time he's been on my channel, and he was actually my first guest, and that was my biggest show I ever did. And it was the day TJ Hawkinson, we had the trade, and it was my first episode of Under the Lights, and it broke and set my record that I haven't broke yet. Mike and Norval.
Matt's great.
The head coach of Florida State. I had to have the college guy tell me who the head coach of Florida State is. Thanks for coming back. Last night's chat was crazy. Sorry, Dante, I didn't get all to your comments fast enough. We're a little less popular on this show right now, but hopefully it's growing. Yeah, both guys corrected me. Daddy Madison coming on. I wasn't going to call him Pops Madison, but he wanted me to call him Darrell. So that didn't go over well, but he's a really cool guy. He actually goes to school on Wednesday night, so that's what he told me. Cool. So that's why he couldn't come on tonight. Two best 2024 QBs will be Caleb and Drake May, North Carolina. I heard that. Also, there's a guy out of Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, that's coming out. Anthony Collins, Golden Knowles. All good. Thanks, man. Thanks for Hey, let's talk about this since East Coast Gridiron's on, and we were talking about it last night, and I really didn't timely matter get to his thought process. But Hendon Hooker is being just being mocked to us. People are talking about us, and Cowboys are apparently looking at him too. I think it's pretty universally thought of that nobody wants to stay at 23 and take him. If we get him either trading down and taking him with our first pick, or trading down, have some draft capital, and trading up to get him back into the whatever round we would take him in. What are your thoughts about a Hendon Hooker who has a very good stats? I agree, East Coast Gridiron, his offensive line. I was watching the QB School. If you ever go on YouTube, go to QB School and watch him break down quarterbacks. he was pretty iffy on Hendon Hooker. He felt he did not like. People are talking about Tennessee offense like it was great. He didn't like it as it translates to the NFL. I mean, you're throwing 10 yards per per reception. Everything looks great, but when he's showing the offensive line was constantly misreading the blocking scheme or who they should block, leaving a free guy open all the time. Um, I I like him. I like him. I think I don't want to pay too much for him. That's what I'm talking about is like this year I don't want to pay too much for a guy. What do you
Mhm.
think? And let me put him up of Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, I'm pretty lukewarm on him. I'm sort of with you where it's
Drake May must be from Oregon.
no, he's North Carolina.
Oh,
But
North Carolina. Okay.
if we can get a guy like this in the third round, late second, depending on what picks we end up with, sure. But you're right. Like I watched that JT O'Sullivan episode as well. Um, Luke
Love
Braun
that show.
did a film study on Hooker. Yeah, he's awesome. Um, and then I've just watched as many highlights and little film breakdowns of him as well ever since this started to kind of gain some traction. I would hate sticking and picking and taking Hendon Hooker at 23. From what I've gathered from all this is the way that offense is ran, it doesn't really one for one translate to the NFL. There's not a ton of like full field reads, the quick game that he runs. And you also didn't really get to see a ton of that. I don't know how much of that was dependent on the offensive line. I mean, a lot of his receivers weren't helping him out too much. Yeah, and if that's the case, football talk, sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we could take him in the third, I'm like, shit.
Right,
Wow, let's do it. I mean,
right.
that would be worth it because we took a big flop with our first pick in the third the last time, as far as
Mhm.
the quarterback is concerned. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
that'd be a hell of a value in third. And
yeah,
I think what
that's
would
sort of
push
my
him
piece
down
on him.
there was
Don't
if
reach.
what would push him down there is because East Coast Gridiron saw him at the Senior Bowl and it was a full on leg brace. So yeah, that I think I think in a normal year, not coming off injury, he's first round pick. I have no doubt. I think NFL coaches would say I think he's got all the traits to be a first round pick because they're overvalued. Quarterbacks are overvalued. I think he's potentially better than some of the top four guys if coming out healthy, just because of his production and he's equally athletic, if not better than some. Like I think he's more athletic than Will Levis. I don't think he's got a better arm than Will Levis, but I think he's more consistent production than Will Levis. I
Mhm.
like Will Levis. So that tells me what I think of Hendon Hooker if he was healthy. The age issue of how much you will have him if you draft him in the second round. Is he a good situation for us because we're losing a year this first year and we don't have a fifth year for him. So these are all things that teams will have to look at.
Yeah, but if he pans out, then you just extend him, and then it's not really a contentious thing, right? If you don't have the fifth year option, but you have 3 years of him on the field, and he starts for 3 years, it probably means he's doing pretty well. And you're right, Bandito.
Yeah, he
Luke
wasn't
is
high on Hooker, but
yeah
he wasn't down on him
demonstratively not.
necessarily either.
Um,
Um,
but and maybe if he came out in 2020, if it weren't for the COVID thing, maybe some people are higher on him there. He's got the deep ball. We saw him throw plenty of deep balls to Jalen Hyatt. Um, Jalen Hyatt might be the best receiver in the country when he's running in a straight line. But yeah, Biletnikoff Award winner, and he was fed the ball. The other receivers on that team were not doing Hooker any favors. So that might have eaten into his ability or bandwidth to read the whole field. The offensive line would have done the kind of the same thing. So there's so many layers to that evaluation. My stance on him is just don't reach.
yeah, the last thing I want to do is trade 3 first rounders to get up in the top 10 or 8 or 5 or whatever and then some, because it would take more than 3 first rounders to make that jump. There's no way no one's gonna. We would have to outbid teams that have higher draft picks than us right now,
and a more dire need at quarterback.
Yeah,
and I've heard good things about Clayton Tune. Actually,
Stetson Bennett, isn't he the Georgia quarterback? Or
Stetson Bennett's the Georgia guy. He's a winner. Best defense in the nation for a few years next to him, but
yeah, that would help.
I'll keep an eye on Tyson
Bennett. I would like that.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I'm pretty lukewarm on Hooker right now. You know,
Tyson Bagnet.
Probably higher than some, probably lower than some, but you know.
I hope the chat's Googling Tyson Bagnet now. Hey, if you haven't already, please like. Last time I looked, I had 6 people like the show. There's 12 of you in here. Every one of you go like it. I appreciate it. Helps the channel. Again, and if you guys want more football, stay tuned. We're going to have Matt Anderson and Climbing the Pocket. That's right.
Climb the Pocket, and then he writes for the Vikings Wire on USA Today, and I think something else.
He does a lot of shit.
He does a lot of shit. He's great. He's a great follow on Twitter.
He's one of the best hosts on YouTube. That's why I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna be on tonight. We're gonna talk about grades, about the free agents and what kind of grades we give in Kwesi. What you guys think? Come and watch that show. But make sure you hit like on this one, and be ready for the next show coming at 8:00 on this channel. It's also simulcast on GG Sports, but don't go to their side. Go stay on mine. I'm kidding. I don't care where you go as long as you're watching. I don't see Bagnet getting drafted, even though he's good. We can scoop him. Yeah, I mean, how many good quarterbacks are there? I'm now Tyson Bagnet. I am no idea who this guy is. I'm not afraid to say it. Tyson Bagnet, 40-yard, 4.79, vertical jump 36, broad jump 10, 3 cone 695. Apparently he went to the combine. 6'3", 213, hand size 9.5, 30 and an 1/8 inch arms. He's not a physical specimen, not overly athletic, although there's some good stats in here. But he looks like he's well enough physically to play in the NFL. So that's kind of neat. He's about the same size of Cousins, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if he fits the. I want a mobile quarterback. I want a mobile quarterback that everybody clamors for. What we have for Hendon Hooker? Hendon Hooker is older than Alexander Madison. Alexander Madison is the youngest running back on our team. The youngest running back on our team, and he was a free agent. And we drafted a guy last year and the year before, and he's still the youngest guy on our team. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad was a hell of a track star. He ran like a 10.5 100-yard dash. Pretty amazing track athlete, I believe in California. He is more athletic than Will, but not better arm. Will Levis played in pro style offense, looked like crap.
And Levis has very little.
I'm not going to disagree. Will Levis had a bad senior year or final year.
He seems to have very little like creativity when shit hits the fan. You know what I mean? I think when he's that, it's sort of like Kirk, right? Like if things are going well, he can be pretty good. He doesn't have the refined footwork of Kirk yet. He's probably not quite as accurate. He's got a howitzer on his shoulder, but he doesn't give you that much juice when things don't go right on the offensive line and so forth. And his receivers dropped everything as well. You know, he had some pretty rough luck there too. But you know.
So we got a question here. Let's draft him.
Off the walls. I'd be bouncing off the walls, dude. And there were so many people say he's played too much football for a running back. You know, Jonathan Taylor had just about as many carries when he came out of Wisconsin. That was his big knock, was that he'd been this bell cow for so long. Something like 1.7 touchdowns a game for Mo Ibrahim in his college career. And if you really, like, for a lot of people, if you really just look at it in a vacuum, if you just watch his tape and watch it next to the next running back, he's a lot higher in those guys' ranking lists than he is when you take in all these other outside factors, which do matter. There's the workload thing and whatever else, but I'd be super high on that because I love getting Gophers on the Vikings just in general. I love Asazia Tomowo. I was really wanted Antoine Winfield. I really wanted Tyler Johnson, but I think that would have been a move that made more sense if one of Madison or Cook walked. So at this point, the room's kind of full because you hope Ty Chandler is pretty serviceable as well. But I would like that. I push back on the people who sort of dismiss him as a day two talent just because of the workload in college. And I think you're going to be able to get him later than he should go.
Well, Dante has him as his number one running back in the draft, believe it or not.
My man.
Going against the grain, loves him, Ibrahim. So that's Dante's man. He makes a good point here. Bagnett and Stetson, if they had great combines, of course, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention, but he has good numbers, athletic numbers. The 40-yard dash is a little on the average side, but these guys could go late. Right now for me, I feel like the only way I want to draft a quarterback late is if we did accumulate picks by drafting down, because those 5 picks need to fill out this roster. I want draft picks. I don't want a bunch of undrafted free agents. I want these guys. I want to get our guys, right? I want to pick them. And I could see us if we traded down once, twice, got 3, 4 more picks. Yeah, I wouldn't mind taking a shot on a quarterback. Kirk Cousins was 4th round. It worked out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is something that could happen again and has happened pretty for 49ers.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see more picks come to the Vikings picked at 0 of their original picks last season in the draft. All of them got moved around one way or another, up or down. But Kwesi's going to find some more for sure. I think they like too many guys in this draft to stick and pick or even trade up and lose one of those 5 picks one way or the other.
I thought Will Levis had a good year.
That was kind of the one that put him on the map was his junior year, right?
Yeah, didn't he have like 500 yards rushing and a pretty and 10 wins, and I'm pulling it up now. I feel like I lost my mind because I did a video on him and I noticed how bad his last year was, but let me look. Yeah, 2021, 2,826 yards, 8 average, 24 TDs, 13 picks. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't great as far as a touchdown to interception ratio. But when you add his rushing yards in there, I think he had quite a bit.
I can't remember if it was.
I hate ESPN and their shit.
Oh,
rushing. Yeah. Well, he had 376 yards rushing, but only 3.5 yards per carry. I think people like his arm, his athletic traits. My big downside on Will Levis is his delivery. He throws like a shortstop, I think. And
yeah, he throws exactly like a shortstop.
He doesn't take advantage of his 6'5" height, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. And I can't remember
6'3". He's only 6'3". My bad. He looks taller than he is. I do like his moxie, his gusto, hey, I remember after a game and they were like, hey, what, so and so got a touchdown. I said, yeah, he hadn't got one yet, so I kind of did that we kind of made that up on the fly to get him his touchdown. To go out of your way as a quarterback to give a guy his due on the team, it just kind of led me to like him. But I'm not. I was really high on him, and I kind of fell out of favor the more I thought about how he went down as a senior. And the guy that kind of convinced me was Rick Spielman. And it was like he didn't have an answer. He says he doesn't have an answer for what happened his senior year, and that's the deal.
It was either just this past year or it was combined his junior and senior year. But there was a stat that 7 of his interceptions touched the receiver's hands.
Oh, okay.
We're tipped off the
I just don't
off the
remember
hands of the
Kentucky
receiver.
having that many great players. But again, I don't watch college football nearly enough because I just work too much, and then I had to do this whole NFL thing, and it's like a third job for me. This receiver
Yeah,
drop passes,
Dante,
Kentucky receiver. Yeah, so
I
he's
doubt I.
agreeing with you. He's agreeing
Yeah,
with you.
I don't
Um,
watch as much tape as you for sure. But those are nuggets I heard from Will
I think you
Levis, who
meant
does.
RB. I think you meant RB, Dante, but I'm not one to
Tanner
correct you.
Morgan, yeah.
As long as we don't drive Tanner Morgan, yeah, that's a name. He's eligible. Tanner Morgan will be 87 this year,
Mm-hmm.
and just started talking in my ear. But let's see what else we got going on here. Why am I still got Hendon Hooker up? Jesus, I've been this whole time I've had this Hendon Hooker thing up. Um, I don't know. Let's see here. Mock draft Zay Flowers to us. That's pretty cool. What do you think of him? I lost you. You're on mute.
Yeah, I think I was. I'm a big Zay Flowers guy. He's probably my him and A.T. Perry are my two wide receiver draft crushes. And I think you could get AT a little bit later, which is probably why I lean towards him a little bit. Have you watched any of him or heard any of him, Dave?
Of who? Zay
AT,
Flowers or
AT Perry
no?
out of
Not
Wake.
yet. Where's he out of?
Put him on your list. Wake Forest, if I'm not mistaken. For some reason, I feel like yeah, Wake Forest. But he is like a really, really smooth athlete at 6'5". And then I watched a long form interview of his that Bootleg Football did as well. Really, really sharp kid. And his tape is pretty nuts for his frame. Like I said, super, super smooth athlete, and I think he could kind of complement JJ in all the ways you want a guy to. And you might be able to get him on day two or in round three, even much more likely to than a guy like Zay. You might even have to stick and pick at 23 if you want Zay that bad. But Zay Flowers is sick. I really like what he could bring to the table as well. Dynamic after the catch, really compact frame. He put on like 13, 15 pounds of muscle between the end of the season and the combine and didn't lose a ton of burst. Still just a really shifty athlete and ran a solid 40. I wouldn't hate Jordan Addison, Anthony.
I have a red
Um,
flag on Jordan Addison. I'm reading his
what
draft
is it?
bio. I'm reading his draft bio. 8 3/4 inch hands. I'm a big
Ooh,
hands
Kenny
guy.
Pickett style.
I'm a big hands guy, and especially for receiver and quarterback, I like it for all positions because you can
Mhm.
control people with your hands, but you can catch the football. Ah, man,
Did
what
you see
is a 40 yard
JSN's?
dash 4.49,
Yeah,
10.10 foot 2 inch a broad jump, 34 vertical. So, I mean, all are pretty good athlete. God, it just scares me when someone's 5'11", but he has 8 3/4 inch hands. And he's a junior coming out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see JSN's unofficial 40 come
No,
out?
what was it?
4.5 flat.
Oh shit! First top 10 pick, top
Right?
15, top 15
Faster than a
pick
lot of
now.
people thought he would run.
Top
Um,
15 pick now.
and his 3 cone and stuff was his 10 split and his 3 cone were better than his long speed as well.
Oh, that was amazing. I heard,
Yeah, so it just
and
emphasizes.
that's why he gets open so much, and you could see it on the field and game speed where he's just like, poof, he's like, just
Yeah,
gets by people. Gets he especially when you're outside the numbers and he pushes you in and then separates to the sideline and you just dump it to
yep,
the sideline and let him go get it. It's the kind of player you look for, man. I really like it. And one thing I would say Flowers though, even though he's not tall, he fights for the ball. He's got, great athletic ability, vertical.
yeah,
He gets those 50-50 balls. He's just not tall.
A
but he
guy
gets
like
them
that
for some
too
reason.
is Josh Downs out of North Carolina. He's about 5'10" as well. He has 70% contested catch rate in college at 5'10".
Oh wow.
So I mean, he has that go get it skill set, and obviously a great deep threat. He had a pretty good connection with Sam Howell and Timothy. If Will Levis slides to like 10, I think the Vikings are on the phones immediately. Daniel Jeremiah had them trading up to 7 with Vegas to get Levis, and even him sliding down that far seems, a little questionable. Just the way this board might fall. But yeah, I think if he falls out of that top 10 and certainly the mid teens, I think the Vikings are pulling the trigger and seeing what they can make happen for sure. We know O'Connell likes Levis, has some connections to the Kentucky staff and so on. So yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. Yeah, the only way we trade up, I think, is I don't see us going to 7, but I could see us going in the teens. I could. Do I want us to do that? I'm not sold on that yet, but and I haven't, and I've cooled off from Levis a little bit, but I'm not opposed to him because I do like him as a like is I like his attitude. And obviously he has physical skills. He is mobile enough to get out of to get out of trouble. um but you want to see guys that are good in the pocket too. Like, Tom Brady's not athletic, but he is freaking good in the, moving around in the pocket, and that
Mm-hmm.
usually sets players apart. What was the Steelers quarterback for so many years? What's his name?
Roethlisberger.
Roethlisberger. What
Mm-hmm.
was great about him is he's hard to bring down, but he had huge ass hands, and
Tough to knock it
he would
out.
do so many freaking pump fakes that
Yes.
he had people flying in the wrong direction. And and then you throw it over there,
Mm-hmm.
and just that type of, you know plus ability you want to see. And if Will Levis is mobile enough, is strong enough, which I think he is, has the big arm. He says he's got the biggest. Well, they say he has the biggest arm, but then Anthony Richardson says that's crap. I got the biggest arm. You both got pretty big arms, so I don't care. I just
Mm-hmm.
prefer. I honestly like Anthony Richardson throwing style better, but he's prove it again. I wish he would have stayed in another year, but because he's such an athletic freak, yeah, you don't want to stay in another year. Go test the water. Someone's gonna draft you.
Yeah.
But you have
And
been
the
fun to
sooner
watch in
you get a
college.
guy like that NFL coaching, the sooner you can start to straighten out the kinks and stuff like that.
I said I was cooling on him, Dante. I said I was cooling on him.
It's not
Now
good.
I'm ice cold because of you. I'm ice cold. You sold me.
I'll check it out.
We'll go watch your video. Go to ECG. Go find Will Levis tape. I'm
That's on
sure
your
he's
YouTube, Dante.
yeah. I guess that's what he's talking about. I
Okay,
think he.
I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, we'll go look at it.
Anthony, I think, commented, I would not mind Tank Dell. He might sort of be a bargain bin, Zay Flowers type. Another just compact frame. Looked really good in the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, and Houston product. And he could be a nice piece as well. Probably best in the slot, but it's also a guy who's shown some juice in one-on-ones on the boundary, some decent deep speed. Yeah, that's not a bad name drop there if we miss out on a guy like Zay, if they've got some interest.
All right, guys, I'm gonna call it quits for tonight. I appreciate
Yeah, cut
everybody
us off.
for joining. This is SKOL World Live. Thanks for being part of the show. Remember, if you're stay with us at 9:00, 8:00 Central, we're gonna be the SKOL Experience. Me and the GG boys with Matt Anderson. Thank you, SKOL Vikes.
Appreciate you all.